Welcome to The Bridge, a podcast for dental professionals featuring the insights and expertise of fellow dental professionals. Let's welcome our host, Stephen Kuza.
Good morning and hello and happy Friday to all the Bridge Dental Podcast listeners. I hope everyone's doing great. I'm Steve Kuza, your resident financial advisor for dentists. And today I got a special guest, super excited. Ladies and gentlemen, he even joined us from Vegas, 7 a.m. over there. How you doing, Dr. Ifedi?
I'm doing good. Just blessed to be alive. Just out here trying to enjoy the NFL draft. I hope everybody that drafted for your particular team, that the draft gods were kind to your team. For my Carolina Panthers, we had one draft pick in the first, 3 rounds. So hopefully it works out. But otherwise for me, life is good. Really enjoying it. Trying to relax my neck and back for the next few days.
Yes, for sure. Take it easy. Take some time. And only if you're a Detroit Lions fan like myself, well, it is what it is. That's why we say such is life in the NFL draft.
Yeah.
Well, we're super excited to have you today. You got an awesome story to tell. So honestly, I just want to get right to it. And I'm sure you got some good Vegas stories to tell, but we're going to dive into dentistry today. And Dr. Ifedi, I want you to give the Bridge Dental Podcast listeners a scope of where you're at today, man, because you're involved in so many things, so many great things you're doing, not just in dentistry, but in the world of dentistry and beyond. So I'd love for you just to give, an idea of what you're doing.
So a little bit of background on me. Graduated from UNC Chapel Hill, Carolina dentist, back in 2021, May. So almost about a year now. Since I've graduated, I started up my PLLC, Professional Limited Liability Company, to be able to do a lot of my contracting work, which is also known as locum tenens for a lot of people wanting for more short-term contracts. And since then, I've been working all throughout the state of North Carolina as a traveling dentist. I probably worked in that year I've been out, I probably worked in a good 20 to 30 different cities.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's been a good time being able to see a lot of different practices, a lot of different practice types, a lot of different practice owners, a lot of different long-term associates, and really learn a lot about dentistry in this first year. Really consider this my business residency of sorts.
Yeah.
I really weighed, do I want to do a traditional residency or AGD, or do I want to come out this first year and do what I like to call a business residency, be able to see a lot of different practice types and really learn from a lot of great practitioners in dentistry.
So you graduated and almost had this gap year, right? The gap year is like when I leave high school, I don't want to go to college or anything. Let me go out and explore the world. But you're exploring the world of dentistry and all these different practices. Anything so far you don't have to call out anybody, but any processes that you really love to see or practices that you really have a great theme on, and anything really you don't like?
Honestly, the first practice that I saw up close was one of my mentors, Anthony Morabel. Amazing guy. He's the first person that really taught me systemization within dentistry. So going to his practice really set the tone. He had checklists for his hygienists, for his assistants, end of day. I know a lot of us see checklists, but he actually has them that they have to initial off before they leave at the end of the day. And it just creates that co-accountability between management and his actual staff, that they're in this together. And before we leave, we have to make sure we're ready for the next day and make sure we can wrap up the previous day. So just seeing small stuff like that everything that was needed for a day's work was already in the operatory. No one had to leave the operatory to go get anything. From everything from the start to finish was easily available, and everybody in the office knew where it was. I went into different practices seeing that one first, which kind of made things hard because going to see other practices in so many different settings really was completely different. We ranged from one solo doc that had maybe 3 other staff members to full-blown practices with 4 or 5 other docs and staffs of upwards of 20. So to see the wide ranges of different kind of staffs and different settings within dentistry really created this dichotomy between great systemization and not so great systemization. But one thing I will say is the common denominator amongst them all is the fact that I believe the people who work in dentistry that I personally come in contact really care about their patients.
Yeah, absolutely. I can appreciate that. And so, you went into the next office like, hey guys, where's the checklist?
They said, what checklist?
Yes. Well, and that's the beauty of dentistry, because you're an entrepreneur, and especially everything I've learned about you. You're an entrepreneur who happens to be in dentistry, it seems. It's an opportunity for you. And what you notice in seeing these other practices is there's many different ways to run it, right? Many different ways to do it. We'll take us back a little bit. So you're not originally from the States, right? So tell us a little about where you're from and how did you end up here? Tell us a little about that journey.
All right. So we all hail from an amazing country called Nigeria over in West Africa. And I was born here in the States.
Okay.
So my parents wanted me to have the ability to become president one day. So there
you go.
I don't know if I'll ever use that ability, but they wanted to make sure at least I had a chance. So my parents were both born and raised in Nigeria, and they came over for their education for college. And after that, they settled down, had a family here. My father went to NC Central, is what we call it here in the States. And once he became educated and was looking for a wife, he went back, met my mother, found my mother, brought her over to the States. They started a family back in the 1980s. After they got married, then I was the second of their 4 sons. And then we've just been enjoying life ever since. They settled down in Charlotte, North Carolina, which I was born and raised at. I spent my first 18 years on earth in Charlotte. Then from there, went to East Carolina University for undergrad studies. I studied healthcare administration. I really wanted to get a good grasp on healthcare and understanding from all different aspects, not just dentistry, not just from the business side of things, but really understand how they all commingle together to create this beautiful orchestra known as healthcare. From that point, I went on to my master's program in business administration. Wanted to really double down and really understand the leadership aspect of healthcare and really understand how I could implement a lot of these big time strategies used in hospitals within dentistry. So then move forward to dental school, and here we are today.
Well, and I'm sure your parents are very proud of where you're at and all the things you got going on, but you were going to be an OBGYN is what you were saying before. And so tell us a little about what transitioned that. So why did you want to go down that path? What led you over to dentistry?
So for me personally, I've always either wanted to create babies or create spines. And I wanted to help people do one or the other. But for the longest, it was more on the medicine side of things. And it wasn't until, honestly, when I got to college and started meeting, I actually went to East Carolina, like I said, and East Carolina School of Dentistry started, I believe, the year I got there or the year before I got there. So the first class was going through school as I was going through undergrad. So we had a very interesting time to be able to meet with them. And East Carolina also has a medical school. So it was able to meet with a lot of different residents from the medical side, as well as a lot of dental school students on that side. And as I was talking to them, I used to always ask, like, what do you like about it? Because me personally, I like to think that whatever the highest level of whatever particular field you are, is that what you strive to be? Because if not, why are you in this particular field, right? Because let's say if the ceiling is, it tops out at an earning income that you're not very satisfied with, or at the top level, you're not able to affect change in the way that you want to affect change, then you might be in the wrong industry.
Yeah.
So as I went higher within medicine, I'm asking different layers up to honestly, we have a whole hospital system called Vidant in Greenville, North Carolina, where East Carolina is housed. And I asked them, like, do you feel like you can affect change the way you want to affect change? And the vice president said, no, you can't. Mm-hmm. And I asked them, who are the ones that really run, hospitals? Who are the ones that really run this thing? And he said, we do. I said, who is we? He said, the MBAs of the world. We run the hospitals. And that was just a culture shock to me, thinking that the fact that treatment is being delegated to me at the time, knows absolutely nothing about the clinical side of healthcare. So from that side, that it just really limited what I thought was the upward mobility within medicine. It just felt like there was a lot of handcuffing the higher you go and the more that you want to affect change. I have and had dreams of starting my own hospital one day. And that is still possible. It'll probably be just from a different aspect within healthcare. So once I learned more about dentistry and learned the fact that these different practitioners have the ability to own their own practices, to be able to grow their practices in size and scale, and to be able to become great dental educators, I said, this is what's aligning with my inner core, my inner entrepreneur, my inner educator. And I said, I don't know but the more I hear, the more I'm liking. These guys are bringing me over to the dark side. And Talked to my mother about it. She was like, I prefer medicine, but honestly, all I ask is that you give them both a shot. So believe it or not, I took the MCAT and I took the DAT. I took both entrance exams.
Wow.
MCAT was one of the worst experiences I've ever taken. It felt like I was taking boards for dental school.
Oh my gosh.
It was 7.5 hours, a full day. It was a full day of exams. It felt like work. I felt like I was working. So I studied for it for 2 summers, studied for that thing. Took that. And then shortly thereafter, took the DAT. And taking DAT from the MCAT is like, you have too much information.
I gotcha.
At that point. So now you got to figure out, how can I use this information for the DAT? So, and then I talked to the Lord, because I'm very faith-based. And I asked him, whichever one I get a higher score on, that's where you're telling me you want me to go. I saw the MCAT score, and then I saw that DAT score. I was like, I'm going to be a dentist one day.
I love that, man. I love that. Man, there's a lot to unpack there. But I want to actually go back to, there's a common theme I'm seeing with you is you're open to, you seem to be, I like the statement, radically open-minded. You seem to be open-minded to different opinions, different perspectives, different ideas, and then using what you've learned to say, all right, well, how does that make sense in my life? So that was their experience. That was their experience. All right, now how does that information help me? And it seems like you're actually doing that right now in this 1-year business residency that you got going
very
on.
Sharp, very sharp.
So, have you started to formulate a vision of where it might go for you, Doc? Do you think you kind of starting to put together like, all right, this is now starting to build this path of I'm going to do this, or you still feel like you want to research more?
That's a good question. I mean, I would say coming out of dental school, I wanted to move straight into practice ownership. That's something I was definitely interested in. I remember talking to my mother, who was one of my great counselors in my life. And she told me, she's a nurse practitioner herself. She was a nurse our entire life and then became a nurse practitioner after we went to college. I said, Mom, you couldn't do this earlier in life. But, beggars aren't choosers. So she told me that you probably want to get a little bit of experience underneath your belt before you go open it up, because you just have a different perspective on things. And I'm the type that I like to take advice, because if it ever backfires, you can always say, I told you so. So I took that advice, took this year. And I will say my thought process about practice ownership has shifted. I wouldn't say changed, but it's shifted in some ways. And I've seen a lot of limitations that occur with owning 1 or 2 or 4 or 5 practices.
Right.
And not from an individual perspective, because I think people still do amazing things within communities and be able to impact communities in great ways. But when I look at how can healthcare and dentistry really meet, it feels like it's going to have to happen at a higher level to really impact and affect change. And that's really confusing in ways, just because dentistry tends to be a lot more segmented than healthcare.
Correct. Yeah.
Healthcare has been consolidated. Whatever city or area you go to, they have their healthcare system. Within dentistry, you can go up a block, you can see 10 different dentists. You can see a few periodontists, a few endodontists. It's just it's everywhere. And that's the beauty of the entrepreneurial spirit that's within dentistry. But then again, it leaves a lot of basic barriers when it comes to communication between practitioners. I don't know what that looks like or how we can get to the ultimate destination of integration within different offices, but I'm still searching for that. Practice ownership is definitely something I'm definitely 100% still interested in. I just want to figure out, how can we do it a little bit different than the traditional sense of graduating, opening up a practice and hanging up your shingle,
Yeah. Well, and what you mentioned is interesting, because you say medicine and then you say dentistry, and now they're becoming one, right? It's not just cleaning your teeth anymore. I mean, this is like, the dentistry is the first barrier to figuring out, the oral health is the first barrier to, figuring out potentially other issues in the body. Right. But to your point, if the communication is segmented, how are we ever going to get healthcare and dentistry to combine? So you're right. There's got to be something bigger there. And we'll probably need another podcast to solve that. But so you talked about one of the things you mentioned to me was, entrepreneurism is in the blood of your tribe, from where your family's from. So tell me what that means. So walk me through that, because I'm not familiar with that, your tribe in Nigeria. And so just help me understand that. Is that you guys are just go-getters? Like, what does that mean when it's in the blood? Tell me a little bit about that.
It's a good question. So back in Africa, back in the colonial times, it was split up and segmented amongst the different empires back then. And whatever somebody wanted, they just carved up and they all split it up and said, this is for you, Portugal, this is for you, Spain, this is for you, England. And everybody took their chips and went home happy. And Nigeria is a byproduct of that splitting. All the splitting was done without a respect to different tribes and cultures. So in Nigeria alone, we have over 250 dialects.
Oh, wow.
We have 3 main tribes, which is Igbo, Hausa, and Yoruba. I hail from the Igbo tribe, and all the tribes are very good at what they do. And the different tribes are known for different things. The Hausas are the ones who usually run the country back home. So they tend not to leave Nigeria. Igbo and Yoruba are the ones that tend to travel outside the country, with Yoruba being more into the education side of things. They get highly, highly educated. And then the Igbos, we get highly educated as well. But we tend to have an entrepreneurial feel to different things. I'm very big on ownership and really taking responsibility for the fate of your future.
Okay.
So even from a young age, seeing my mother and my father working their respective jobs, but also being able to come together and open up their own healthcare company was very interesting to me. That even though they didn't really have much, they really saw the value and the importance of being able to put together and be able to own a little piece of something. So being able to see that over time and see the evolution of their company and to see how they've grown from being in the back of our house back in the early years to having a full-blown office and a full-blown staff is very inspirational to me. And it really highlights the importance of it. And I believe that when we come to entrepreneurism, it has to be spoken about. It's really tough for you not to hear anything about it for 30 years and then wake up to the spirit of entrepreneurism and think that it's just going to click. Because right now, entrepreneurism is being glorified as in, the great move, and people are being celebrated for it. But growing up, it was looked at as very risky, actually.
Yeah.
To really step out on your own, to do your own thing. So I know it comes with a lot of, ever since COVID and a little bit before COVID, now it's like, oh yeah, be your own boss. But in reality, being an entrepreneur in its truest sense is not really to be your own boss. It's really just to have your own system. And being an entrepreneur comes with a spirit of servitude, all right? Because you have to have your staff that you have to serve. You have your patients you have to serve, or whatever your clientele is, you have to serve. And the better you serve both your staff and you serve your clientele, the better you will technically be as an entrepreneur. And I think, it gets mixed up in ways current day of what entrepreneur is. It's more of do for myself, be my own boss, different things like that. But in its finest sense, back in Nigeria, it's more of I'm serving my family through the spirit of entrepreneurism. So when I go at business, it's at a different approach. It's more of find the problem, solve the problem, more than find the opportunity, take advantage of the opportunity. So that's really when it comes to us in our Igbo tribe, we really have the spirit of finding problems and solving problems. And I'm just trying to take the same aspect and the same approach that I've been given over the years and bring it to dentistry and figure out, how can I help solve a few problems for both the patients and for other practitioners one day?
Well, first of all, Doc, I hope people appreciate the thread that you just put together. One, on understanding where you're from and diving into that and being so well educated about it and the history of your family, I think is amazing, because it's easy to just run in the USA and and do our thing here, but you're truly connected there. You're truly connected. So I love that you shared that, because it's also figuring out who you are, which I think is so important. So as we connect this to dentistry, and by the way, we'll put a bookmark in entrepreneurism, because that what you just said is so profound. Like people think it's just to work a couple days a week for yourself. It's like, man, no, it requires so much hard work. So I want to give the listeners a bit of a rundown here. All right. And for those of you guys who don't know, Dr. Ifedi is also known as Dr. MBA. So he's got one-on-one coaching. He runs his own podcast called The Morning Huddle. It's on Apple Music. He's got The Morning Huddle on Spotify. He's got a TikTok channel. He's got a YouTube channel. He's got a debt crusher master's class. And if you haven't checked out any of his videos, he tells you how to knock out the student loans. He's an Amazon best-selling author. He's got his own book team, right? He's got his LinkedIn. He's got, oh man, you're on Robinhood. You got Twitter, private Facebook. I'm telling you, the rundown hasn't, and we're not done. I'm sure there's more on the link tree, right? So for those of you who are listening to this as a dentist and think about becoming a dentist entrepreneur, it is work, right? So Doc, I want you to share what type of work you're putting in personally and professionally, because I think if you're a young dentist who's listening to this in their third or fourth year, or if you're an associate who's ready to launch their practice, tell us a little bit about the work you're putting in, because it's not just, hey, I'm light bulb, let's go open a practice, right? You're putting in real work right now.
That's really good that you highlight that, because unfortunately, dental school doesn't prepare us for life after dental school when it comes to the business side of things. I mean, most people have maybe a practice management course or two, but I mean,
that's not going to get it done. Yeah.
There's just so much we have to learn in 4 years that's just not the particular area that is chosen to be, invested in. And I get it, because a lot of our classmates graduate and, confidence clinically is a big thing in that first year. So, we have to sacrifice something. But one thing that you highlighted when you ran through a lot of the different businesses that I'm a part of is the fact that I want to highlight that none of those business endeavors I do alone. Mm-hmm. That's key, because I am a full-time practitioner, actually full-time and a half. I work basically time and a half. So I don't really have the personal time to be able to manage all these different entities 100% myself. So when we talk about, the book, that was basically a book on manhood to teach young men coming up about the importance of manhood and really being able to stand on your own too and understand your important role in a family. And that book was written with my older brother, Jamine Ifedi, and our nonprofit called The Team, Talented, Empowered, Inspired Men, which we started back in 2012. And that was just a culmination of almost 10 years of lessons that we learned and hundreds of males that we've helped from starting basically undergrad to graduating and discovering themselves as a man in the world, And
love that.
I used to be a bigger part of it. I used to be the president of the organization. But as things get busier, you have to remove yourself from that position of leadership. But the key is to make sure you replace yourself with somebody who is capable of doing more than you were, It's all about replace and delegate, So when I moved out of that role, once I started my MBA program, we replaced ourselves with a young man named Emeka Ekenenem. He was actually one of my only roommate I ever had when I was in dental school. He ended up spending some time at NC State. And now he has entrance into medical school. So he's going into medical school now. So to see his evolution, to go from being, just an unconfident young man to becoming one of our future healthcare professionals as a medical doctor is just important. And we've had a long line of great leaders within that organization. And when we talk about the podcast, The Morning Huddle, I started that with student Dr. Kamal Smith, who is the national president-elect of SNDA, Student National Dental Association. And just understanding that, I could try to do the whole podcast thing alone, right? But I think it's better when we have, the student's opinion as well as the practitioner's opinion, being able to put it together and to be able to give a product that, people really wanted to hear and people need to hear. So to be completely honest, Kamal does a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to editing and putting things together. I think he deserves his dues when it comes to that, So, and moving forward, even Dr. MBA LLC, when it comes to coaching, I mean, whenever we do have our talks, I have some great people come on. My younger brother, who is studying for his CPA right now, comes on and speaks about the financial aspect about dentistry.
Absolutely.
During our earlier times, one of my former classmates, Dr. Marissa Lester, she speaks about the National Health Service Corps and how to be able to package yourself and make sure your application is competitive to be able to secure one of the most powerful tools available to us as healthcare professionals, which is a full ride through school as well as a stipend.
Yep.
As well as my vice president, Dawn Gillespie, who runs the Airbnb side of the operations. She is the Airbnb coach, which really helps people understand how do you take the income you're earning and to put it into a vehicle, because that's all you really need. Take your income, put it into a vehicle, let the vehicle do the rest of the work.
That's right.
She coaches people and helps them find Airbnbs, put the cleaners in place. So in reality, you write a check and that check continues to pay you for time. But I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole. But what I want to do is highlight the fact that each and every one of these different businesses has great people in them that honestly could be running their own businesses. And we just chose to come together and to collaborate and to build something beautiful. And I know within dentistry, it could be the same way. There's a lot of different associates that could open up their own practices, right? But how can we put these great minds together so we can create a partnership of sorts to be able to help and reach more people? So maybe that's why I'm really holding out right now for practice ownership, because I want to see what that looks like,
Yeah.
Could I create open up one practice just for myself, my loved ones, and my local community? Yes. But how do we touch 1,000 people, 10,000 people, 100,000, 1 million, 100 million people,
And what you just highlighted is it's tough to do it alone.
Yeah.
It's tough to do it alone. You need to build relationships. And really one of the only way you got to have an abundant mentality, because like you said, number one, I think it'd be the timing to do all this would be near impossible, but you were able to leverage relationships you built and trusted people, had an abundant mindset that I don't need this to be all Dr. Ifedi. I don't need my YouTube channel, my morning huddle, the book. I don't need to all be about me. You had an abundant mentality and brought other people in. And because of that, you've leveraged 8, 9 other opportunities, right? So even finding time to get back in this podcast, which I really appreciate. I know you have you're doing it from Vegas and hanging out with your buddy. Like, I know you're busy, and I really appreciate you giving back to the community that way, because you give it back, it'll come back at you. The karma's there, right? And that's the faith you got to have. So I love that. And there was something that you said, you glossed right over it. You're like, that was 10 years. The book was a culmination of 10 years of working with men and helping them, and your brother and your organization. And that, I think that's the missing piece in today's entrepreneurism. It says that people don't want to do it in 10 years. They want instant gratification for it, right? They want the Instagram post, they just want that instant gratification. But it's okay to have the hard work, because it's that much greater when it pays off. You agree?
You're really tugging at something in me. I don't know what you're trying to do, but you're bringing it out of me to something I'm very, very passionate about, is the fact that entrepreneurship has a history to it. You don't just wake up to it, There has to be something that spurs that in you, something that festers, something that really brings the best out of you, that you really want to grow, because if not, it's going to burn out. I'm not sure if everybody knows who Gary Vee is, but he said for years he used to post videos about his wine shop, and nobody found very, very much interest in it. But when it actually took off, people was like, where does this guy come from? But when you go back, you can see a collection of hundreds to 1,000 videos of his over time. And I truly feel like Dr. MBA LLC, the Instagram page is, and the Facebook and the Twitter, I feel like that's my wine shop. Mm-hmm. Because one day when people finally say, where did Dr. Ifedi come from? That when there's a body of work, people can trust you.
Right.
Are you going to be here today and gone tomorrow? Because that's something that I feel like a lot of people are losing faith in, a lot of the business owners that are in place today, because a lot of us don't really have history when it comes to this, Right. And I think that's what my mother was really tugging at, to say, get that experience underneath your belt. Could I have opened up a practice as soon as I graduated?
Yeah. You can do it tomorrow. Yeah.
I could do it tomorrow if I wanted to.
Yeah.
But what's the history behind it? Have I learned the lessons? Have I taken the lumps? Do I have the scars to show that I'm in this and I'm here and I'm not going anywhere? And if you trust me with your organization, or if you trust me with your patient population, that I'm going to be here for the long haul, for the ups and the downs. So when you say 10 years of a culmination of 10 years of work, I mean, that's truly what it is. I've been in dentistry at this point since 2017. I feel like I have a lot more stripes to show for it, But the thing about it is, when it comes to entrepreneurism and the spirit of business and the spirit of leadership, it's it's easier to lead when you have that experience behind you, because now you have ways to guide people through the same situations that you're able to now foresee and say, maybe you want to move this way versus move this way. And when they ask you why, it's not because I saw it on a YouTube video or I saw it on Instagram or TikTok. It's because when I did this, was in the same similar situation. I lost 2 years of my life because I chose to move this way instead of doing this. I'm seeing this same obstacle coming your way. I think you should do this. And that's the biggest thing you can gain from mentorship, is being able to learn from their particular downfalls or learn from their particular situations to make sure you avoid it. And I think that is where the truest and the sweetest sense of mentorship comes, when you're able to now work with somebody and help them work through situations that you saw and help them circumvent that. And that's why it's always a mentor's job to make sure the ones you leave behind are greater than you. So when I talked about our president, Emeka, I was able to sit him down and point it out, these are the things you need to worry about. This is how you get the guys motivated. This is how you get these guys in place. Because the ones before me, my older brother was the president before I was the president. He sat me down, did the same thing. These are the things you need to worry about. These are the things. And believe it, in my opinion, I think Emeka was the best president out of all of us. We had our greatest growth when leadership was outside of the family. When you become the chairman of your organization and let your CEO do what the CEO needs to do. And that's always your goal. Let your organization grow to become bigger than you. I haven't set foot back in East Carolina in probably 4 or 5 years, and the organization is still growing and winning organization of the year after year after year. Men are going on to law school. Men are going on to medical school, dental school. I mean, we have about 3 guys going on to dental school this year alone, 2 going on to medical school, 2 going on to law school. And this is coming from minority males. And the reason the whole organization started was because there was a big discrepancy at East Carolina University and most predominantly white institution when it comes to minority males, where minority males graduated at a significantly lower clip than most other majority other demographics. We graduated at 30%, meaning that 10 males come in, 3 males leave with a degree. That is a huge issue.
Yeah, it's not good. That's not good enough.
Good at all. So the organization was started with a premise of 100% graduation rate. We want to take it from 30 to 100. We don't want to take it from 30 to 50. We want perfection when it comes to this. And if we fall short, we shall fall short. Before a 7-year span, we had 100% graduation. Everybody who came in left with a degree and went home to their mother, father, their community and said that, I'm ready to help. I'm ready to chip in and figure out what I can do to make things better. So if we can equip the males that we had with the education that they came here to get in the first place, leave with that education, go back to your community and affect change. And then after you affect change, start with your family and be a positive leader and role model for your family, for this thing to continue generation after generation.
And, you're touching on, first of all, it's an amazing journey. I don't want to just skip over that. That is an amazing journey to go on, because that's 100% give back. There's no profit in that. There's 100% give back. The profit is in the soul. That's what the profit is. Yeah. And I think that's an amazing journey that you guys are growing into and working on and helping people, because there's a lot of lost souls out there, and you're helping them get and bridge that gap. So I love that. I can tell the passion is there, man. I can see it. I can feel it.
Profit is a byproduct, man. I really feel that. Profit is a byproduct.
Yeah.
I think if you worry about the right things, I've seen it from different business owners. When you focus on the byproduct, making sure that you grow your staffs. Your staff members start here and they grow here. The different individuals you work with, you start as that insecure young man to be in medical school, which was always your dream. Mm-hmm. When you worry about your patients first, that's really one of the greatest reasons I love dentistry. It's because you can truly scale how effective you are at your job based off of how many people you help. Right. And the more people you help, the more you make. And I think it's a beautiful dichotomy and a balance between the two, that if you want to make more, you don't technically have to do anything mischievous, or you don't have to cut anybody out. Just help more people.
Right.
Serve more patients. And that's what I absolutely love about it.
It's funny you mentioned that. That's a very similar business model in finance. I can get out there and give people financial clarity in many different aspects. The more people I do it, the more fruitful it is. But I'm helping the community. It's more impact. So it's a great point you just brought up.
For financial advisors, in my opinion, I feel like if everybody could just pay you guys $100, even a year, not even that much. Let's say if 1,000 people paid you $100 a year to just say, I make my paycheck, I'm going to live off 50, and I want you to figure out the other 50. I don't even want to look at it. Just take this other 50. Obviously, it's going to be in an account in my name, but I want you to figure out where this thing goes. If we could get into the mindset of being professionals at what you're professional at, and help and bringing in professional help where you need professional help, that would take us light years. And I'm not just talking about dentists. I'm talking about any particular field where you're not knowledgeable about. Bring in the help.
Yeah.
Bring in the student Dr. Kamal Smith. Bring in the Dr. Lester's. Bring in the Don Gillespie's. Bring in the Kingsleys, the Jamine Ifedis. Bring in the help in areas that you're weak at, and focus on what you're good at. Double down on that. And if you double down on that, you're gonna look out, and 10 years have passed, and you're gonna say, man, what happened to that 50%? Oh my God.
Right.
That's crazy.
That's wealth. Yeah, right. That's wealth.
That's wealth.
Yeah. Well, for those of you listening, I hope you understand that Dr. Ifedi doesn't just seem like he's been out of school for a year, man. You have a whole generation of information to share with people. So help us. How does the listening audience get a hold or get connected with you? Tell them, what are some of the best ways? How can we do that?
So you can always reach out to me via email, drmballc@gmail.com. Again, drmballc@gmail.com. And that same handle is what I use on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. If you're looking for me, it's going to be at dr.mballc. You can find me on all platforms. DM me, email me, wherever you need me. I'll figure it out. I talk to dozens of schools at this point when it comes to either undergrad or the actual dental schools about what it means to really take the financial side of dentistry serious when you're making the most important decisions. Believe it or not, you make the most important decisions before you receive the degree compared to after the degree. You know, when we're talking about taking out hundreds of thousands of dollars of student debt without really being counseled on the importance of it or how long it's going to actually take us to really pay it back, it's a scary thought. You know, They always look at how much debt are you taking out versus your income. When you talk about the average income of a dentist being between $150,000 to $180,000, with the average debt being $300,000, that means it's going to take you about 2 to 3 years after taxes if you spend every single dime just to pay it off. And as practitioners, it's never a good combination when we're having to worry about the financial side of things and the clinical care side of things, because though you can't serve two masters when it comes to that. So when we take advantage of the actual financial side of things and put that first and make sure that we're putting ourselves in the best position to now we can practice carefree without having to worry about, is this MOD supposed to be a crown? Is this crown supposed to be a bridge? You practice with a clear conscience and understand that I'm going to do what's in the best interest of my patients every single time. And I have a clear conscience about that. So again, if you need to contact me on Instagram or email at dr.mballc@gmail.com or at dr.mballc.
And we'll also put that in the show notes too. I'll put it right in the body of the show notes. We'll put a connection to your Linktree.
Thank you.
And because you have a lot to share, and I know you'll get back. If somebody asks you a question, you're going to get back to them. So, well, you're in Vegas. Go enjoy it. We just appreciate you giving us, 30, 40 minutes of your time and really speaking to the community about hard work, commitment, passion, giving back. And man, I want to, when you become the Dr. Ifedi Gary V, right? When you, I want to get you back on here. We'll say that was one of the areas where it started. That was the wine shop, right?
Thank you for pouring into dentistry, man, because we need more caretakers in dentistry. We need more people really worrying about the business side of dentistry to make sure that our practitioners can practice free of mind. So thank you for putting this together. I love business podcasts that really help clarify a lot of the concepts that we don't really have gatekeepers for. So thank you for putting this together. I truly appreciate it.
Absolutely. And so for all the Bridge Dental podcast listeners, thank you to Dr. Ifedi, and we'll get you connected with him. I hope you guys have a great Friday, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Have a great day.
And thank you everyone for joining us on the Morning Huddle. My name is Dr. Jamine Ifedi, also led with student Dr. Kamal Smith. We'll see you guys next time.